Generally speaking, I'm not a win one for the Gipper kind of guy. I'm just not. I wasn't one of those people who was getting all sappy and syrupy about Jerome Bettis and you have to win one for the bus or any of that kind of stuff. When a group of players comes together as a team with a championship as its legitimate mission, the truth is, to hear any of them actually tell it, they don't need any external motivation of any kind. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into hockey and or baseball. I also have daily shots on the other two teams in town that I cover, the Penguins and the Pirates. Steelers versus Browns will take place tomorrow night in Cleveland. That's an 8:15 p.m. kickoff, and it's going to be painted in advance, I'm sure, if it hasn't been already, as the potential trap game. Oh no, the 8-2 team with Mike Tomlin as head coach is going to look past the Browns. They're going to be either physically or mentally beaten up from just having faced the Ravens, possibly both, and they're going to let up. Or they won't. This was TJ Watt yesterday when asked what the Steelers have achieved to date.
I mean, those are things for you guys to talk about. We're just trying to play who's on the schedule. We're trying to win. We're trying to continue to get better each and every week. I feel like that's something that we've been able to do, but it doesn't do anything if we lay an egg on Thursday night. We need to continue to grow, continue to get better, and stay humble through it all.
I mean, he's right. That kind of stuff, that conversation is stuff for me and you. What happens inside that room, based on my, multiple gazillion conversations in there with those guys, is that the bar goes up with each passing week. The goal gets a little bit more ambitious with each passing week. And they can start envisioning it more with each passing week. This is a fun recurring theme I've had with Dante Jackson all season, and he's been great about this. Or I'll walk up to him and I'll just say whatever the team's record is at this point. They've won 5 in a row, so we've had 5 of these in a row. I walk up to him and I say 8-2, and he'll give a bunch of examples of how different components of this team overall, whether that's on or off the field, are coming together. How much tighter it's getting, how much the accountability level's going up. What they don't do, and you heard this from TJ there, and I'm going to try to clarify it in case what he said wasn't super easy to get, is that they're not going ahead on the schedule. They're not looking over the second half. They finish playing one game, they enjoy it, they celebrate it, or if they lost, they try to learn from it and whatever, and then they look at who's next on the schedule. They're not counting how many days off they have. They're not looking at the travel miles. They're certainly not analyzing strength of schedule or any other silliness like that. It's just not how they function on a day-to-day basis or even a week-to-week basis. Again, you and I can look at, oh boy, you see the Bills? Now the Bills are going to be tough in the playoffs. And the reason I say that is I actually had this friendly talk with somebody yesterday. Like, which team is the one that you think is going to be the greatest challenge in the AFC? It was a gentleman who approached me on Fifth Avenue who happens to be a regular listener, and shout out to you, my man. But see, he and I could do that. They can't. They can't even come close to that. What this is actually about is TJ winning a playoff game. What it's actually about is Cam Hayward winning a Super Bowl. What it's actually about is all of these guys, 50 plus, and all of these coaches and all of this staff and everybody inside that building on South Water Street wanting the same thing. So yeah, do you want to win one for TJ? Do you want to win it all for Cam? Yeah, but let's remember, they're human. Who do you really want to win it for? Of course, it's yourself, it's your family, it's your friends, it's your pride, it's the ring you get to wear your whole life. It's coming back for all the ceremonies and being treated like returning heroes at halftime, 10, 15 years from now. It's walking together forever. And it's something that can't be achieved if you're not thinking about Cleveland. First, foremost, and exclusively, just Cleveland. I'm not predicting anything here, and I'm not going to be numb to the possibility that the Browns could beat the Steelers just like they beat the Ravens. But in this moment, in this setting, wow, do I not get the sense that anything's going to be overlooked. Stuff's getting serious. When we come back, J1Q.
This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar.
Today's J1Q comes from Levi Robin in Colorado. He says, DK, is there anything to be said about the young guys on this team really buying into the Steelers' culture? Against the Ravens, for example, Broderick Jones, Mason McCormick, Zach Frazier, Darnell Washington were all over the Ravens as if they'd been part of the rivalry for years. Peyton Wilson, Nick Herbig created huge turnovers in huge moments. It felt like they had that true old school Steelers energy that I haven't seen in years. Is this part of that 8-2 record, or am I overvaluing this intangible? 8-2, it's hard to overvalue the intangibles. In football, maybe more than any other sport, it's hard to overvalue the intangibles. The level of commitment, sacrifice, and selflessness that has to occur, it's special. It's special. One player who shall remain nameless was joking with me about the role that he played in the game Sunday. And I'm not going to get more detailed than that because I'll maybe give away who it is and what they were doing, but it was a pretty thankless job. And it was being asked of this player repeatedly. But you know what? He wasn't complaining. He wasn't even coming close to complaining. Why? Because he, like almost all of these guys, hasn't won. He hasn't been there. He hasn't made it to the top. And he's bought in on the one thing that everyone on every successful team needs to do, and that's that it's all aimed at the same objective. Now, to answer your question as to whether or not, the young players are picking up on the Steelers culture, I don't really know that it's that smooth of a transition. Yes, some of that does make it. There are veterans. There are people like Cam Hayward who will pass along to the other members of the defensive line. And I'm going to stress here that this usually happens to stay within positional groups. Cam will say, hey, Casey Hampton did it this way. Aaron Smith did it that way. Brett Kiesel did it like this. And then where the D-line is concerned, specifically how they carry themselves in the community, because that's also a long-standing tradition. Nobody does more charitable work than the Steelers defensive line. And then there's a different type of vibe like the one that Minkah Fitzpatrick has with the secondary, where he's the quiet dad driving the station wagon while all the rest of them are throwing papers at each other and climbing over the seats in the clunky station wagon going down the freeway. That's Minkah, okay? That's Minkah without even making a face. But you need one of those. You need an anchor, but you also need the youth and the enthusiasm. Herbig was so excited when he shared with me how stoked he was about poking that fumble out. First, because it was Derrick Henry, who doesn't fumble a lot, but mostly because that's how TJ showed him to do it. That was the TJ methodology. Joey Porter Jr. lined up in the huddle with his defensive teammates before that 2-point conversion and screamed out, which is something that the players in there will tell you he almost never does. He doesn't say much in the huddle, but he screamed out that this wasn't going to be Dallas again. This wasn't going to be a repeat of what Dak Prescott and the Cowboys did to them. Now, did he get that from his old man, the Steelers way? Was it innate? Was it something that was inspired by the veterans around him? We can't ever know that stuff. What I think might be the fairest answer to your question would be that the Steelers' way or their culture and all that other stuff makes its way through everybody in the building. And the guys who don't get credit for it, for example, are the scouts and evaluators who select these players, who choose them in part because they see them as Steelers type material. Now with Porter, that's a breeze. Mike Tomlin quite literally watched the kid grow up. But how about with Alex Highsmith? You want a really, really nice example there? How about with Highsmith coming out of a small college program at Charlotte, but just oozing Steelers DNA from the moment you first heard him speak, never mind watching him play. How about Keanu Benton? How about the vibes that everyone in that building had for Benton the moment they were able to call his name? How about Zach Frazier? You want to talk about your classic Steeler? You want to talk about the classic position at which to be a classic Steeler at center? You get the idea here. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's not like they just show up and take a class on how to be a Steeler. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. This was an especially fun one. Let's try for that again tomorrow.